In this video, we will see the complete step-by-step procedure for clutch plate replacement and what are the components that are required to replace along with that. Before watching this, please watch the 2-minute video which I have posted and link is in the description so that you can understand the concept clearly. So these are the components that we are going to replace today. So that car's trunk shockers has gone, because of which if you open the trunk it falls off on our back. So which is why you have to replace that. So it has two, one is for left and one is for right. And I am just showing the part number mainly so that if anyone required can pause and zoom. Next we'll move on to the main part. This is the release bearing, and here is the part number. If anyone requires, just pass and zoom so that you can get it. And this is the first part that I'm going to open. So totally we're going to replace 3 parts as per the 2-minute video, of which this one is a release bearing and this cost around 3000. This alone cost 3000. This is a small component but still cost 3000. But we do have clutch plate and clutch cover, right? Those together cost 3000, which means just understand how important this component is. And this one is clutch plate, and here is the part number. To understand what clutch plate does, please watch the 2-minute video. Link is in the description, and here is the part number. Now let's unbox this. Here it is. So this is the clutch plate. This has multiple internal components, that movable spring, pressure plate. So we don't want to go in such in-depth one. Just understand this is the second component. The first component is release bearing and second component is this clutch plate. And this is of brand value, but this is the OEM one which I bought from Maruti genuine parts. Still they have value part, and there is somewhere it is written as MSIL Maruti logo. And the third thing that we have is the clutch cover, and here is the part number. So clutch plate and clutch cover together cost around 3000. Release bearing alone cost 3000. So these are 3 components that are required to replace while we do the clutch complete replacement. And here you can see MSI written over there, and here it is written as Swift diesel. But as I mentioned, this is common for all the 1.3 liter diesel which Maruti has. This looks so good, right? Even can be kept for showcase. That good it is. And as usual, our car had run around 7000 kilometers, for which I will replace the air filter for sure. Since I went to buy all these components, I bought this one too. And also I have bought the windshield washer, 3 packets. And also in this car we faced one wide issue, that is that while you are in traffic, right, the car will be in first gear, but when you put second gear it will not move, even neutral will not come in. And the reason for that is a small gear bush which costs around 25 rupees. So replacing this bush will solve that issue. So we are going to replace along with this process. So now let's get into the process. So first we have to remove the battery. We have done that. The next thing that we have to do is we have to remove the air filter box. For that we have to unplug that MAF sensor connector. Yeah, we are done. So battery has been removed, MAF sensor and air filter has been removed, and next coolant box we have to remove. And when we remove the coolant box, right, there will be some leakage, so we have to keep 1 liter coolant bottle for top up. I have purchased that too, forgot to show in the video. As you can see, and the next thing that we have to remove is the battery base. So battery gets seated in one base, right? So that base has around 6 nuts. We have to remove all the 6 nuts. And also it is much rusted, so what we will do is we will remove this and paint it off. So if we paint now, it will dry for next to 4 hours, because replacing clutch will take at least 4 hours of time. And there you can see something, right? So that is the gear. So we have to remove the gear cable, because the main thing that we are going to do is we have to remove the transmission box outside. As you have seen in the 2-minute video, you can understand clearly, right? So we have to remove the transmission box, only then we can view the release bearing and clutch plate and clutch cover. So the two things that you are seeing, that is the gear, and we are removing them. So just to summarize, we have removed the battery, air filter and coolant box and the battery base, and now we are removing this gear and the one that we are pulling out, right? So that is where the gear bush is. So while replacing, we will replace the gear bush and place it before placing here. That's it. And in this car, clutch is not driven by wire, so brake and clutch share the same oil. That's how it works. So once we remove this gear, next we have to disengage the clutch. That would be the next step. Yep, so the gear cable came out, which means the gear, we have removed the gear cable too. Next step is, as mentioned, we have to disengage the clutch. The below part next to the green color, right? That is the clutch one. And we have it disengaged. Next, we have to remove the wheel and all the components on the right side. Similarly for the left side too. Both the sides we have to remove wheel and all the components. When I say all the components, there are n number of components. So I will say one by one. So wheel we have removed. Next we are loosening the suspension. So when we loosen this, the suspension and the brake rotor gets disengaged. Followed by that, we have to remove the link rod. Let me show one by one. As I mentioned, the battery base we have to paint it off so that it can have 4 hours drying time before we put the new clutch. It's just a normal black paint that we have in home. If we fail to do this, it will get rusted, and at some frequency we have to change this. But if you do this small painting and keep it, there is no need to replace. We can use it for the next 5 to 7 years without any issues. So here are the components. That is drive shaft, suspension, then brake caliper, the bigger one that is steering rack, and the one that is standing in the side, right, that is called link rod. These are the components that I was mentioning. And at the back side we have to remove the cover. So let me show again. Drive shaft, rotor, drive shaft, followed by this steering rack, and the one that I am moving out, right, that is link rod. And as mentioned, that is steering rack, drive shaft, brake rotor, suspension, and the below one, that long arm you can see, right, that is lower arm. Okay, next what we have to do is we have to remove all the nuts that we can see where the gearbox is attached to the engine. Okay, there are multiple nuts that we have to remove. So first, from the bottom we have removed the muffler. This is the exhaust muffler. Followed by that, transmission oil we have to remove. Only then we can get out the gearbox. Gearbox is nothing but runs on oil, which is nothing but transmission oil. So this is the drive shaft which I was showing there, right? So we have pulled it out, and I was unable to take the video at the time we were bringing down the gearbox because I was there to help. So that is the gearbox. It's of heavy weight. We have to bring down slowly only with the help of jack. So in the gearbox, what are the components will be there is the gear lever will be attached, then clutch will be attached. Apart from that, the whole gearbox set and also the release bearing is there. So this is the release bearing, the one which we mentioned, right? So this is the small part which costs around 3000 as I mentioned. And the functionality of this you can see clearly in our 2-minute video, which is there in the description. So this is our old release bearing. It's completely gone, and also as you can see there's a shake in there also. So here it is, which means it's very risky. It's totally gone. We won't have any indication to know that the release bearing is gone. It's ideal to replace on every 80,000 kilometers. That's it. So for this new release bearing, we are just using our dot 4 brake fluid oil to give it some better lubrication for our new one before placing it in the gearbox. Because the functionality of this is very huge, and once we put this, we are not going to replace it for the next 80,000 kilometers. So it's always better to take a good care before placing it in the transmission box. All the air has been removed. That ensure that there is no air lock. It's a small time consuming process, but it's worth to wait. So this is our new one, and this is our old one. Okay, so now we have our release bearing ready. This is our gearbox, which has been separated from the engine. So in the engine you can see that the clutch cover and the clutch plate will be attached to the flywheel. That's how the sequence is, which you can see in the 2-minute video. So to disengage this clutch cover, we have certain nuts. So these are quite easier part. The biggest part is removing of gearbox is the biggest part, which we have done. So this we are just going to remove and replace just like a plug and play. So clutch cover has been removed and clutch plate has been removed. And the one which you see here is a flywheel, which we are not going to remove. And as you can see, it's completely worn off. Has a little life, but it's risky. It's not that great condition. It's a new one with whole lot of buttons, and also there will be some marks over there, but the old one is completely gone. So this is how it works. The working principle, please see on that 2-minute video. And here we go. So we'll move on to placing our new clutch plate and clutch cover in the existing flywheel. Before that, we have to scrape it with the sandpaper. The existing flywheel, right? We are just scraping with the sandpaper so as to ensure smooth movement after placing our new clutch plate. Because the thickness of new clutch plate will be a bit high, right? Obviously, because old one has been completely worn off, but new one will have more thickness. So to support that, it's better to wipe all the carbon deposits or dirts which are present in the flywheel by the old clutch plate. That's what we are doing. As I mentioned, this is something that we do only at the next 80,000 kilometers, so it's worth to spend some time instead of rushing off. 80,000 kilometers may take next 5 years too. Okay, now we are good to place. So clutch, plate and also clutch cover. We are binding it together and placing there because clutch plate and clutch cover are tightly coupled. They both sit together, and now the whole process we are going to do in reverse. Now we have to tighten the bolt. This video may act as a reference for many people, either to understand or in case if you have removed and you forgot on which one to put first or second, this may help out. The next thing is we have to place the gearbox with the new release bearing, and for this I have to go on for a help. So there will be a stop page in video. This has to be lifted by a jack and we have to place all the nuts. Yep, so that has been done. We have placed the gearbox. The next step is we have to place the drive shaft. So the whole reverse process. The drive shaft is removed, right? So drive shaft we have to link with this rotor, and then the steering rack. Now we are linking the suspension, link rod, everything one by one. Tighten them well, and yes, we have done. We have placed the wheel, both left and right, both sides. And now let's see how the clutch action is. As you can see, it's not like a diesel car. It's too smooth. Always new one will be smooth, right? That smooth it is. So with this, we'll close this video, and thank you all for watching. Please do like, share and subscribe.